Hi everyone, this is the Movie Club, and today we're watching In the Shadow of the Moon. At a pianist's concert, in a cafe kitchen with a cook, and on a city bus, blood suddenly pours from noses, ears, eyes, and mouths. They all die. The out-of-control bus slams into cars and flips over. A book about Thomas Jefferson falls into the asphalt. Officer Thomas gets up at 10 at night because he's on the graveyard shift. The TV is running news about the bus incident. He fries pancakes and treats his pregnant wife. She jokes that she's already tired of eating breakfast for dinner. The baby girl kicks inside her belly. He kisses his wife, says he hopes to earn a promotion to detective, and runs out since his partner Maddox is waiting in the car. The crew is sent straight to the crash site. Their colleagues direct them straight to the scene of the bus crash. Her skull is empty. The brain has leaked out. Thomas notices injection marks on the neck and shows them to the detective, his brother-in-law Holt. Right then, they're told 2 more people have been found in other parts of the city. They examine those bodies. Thomas tells Holt they need a Tock screen. Holt shuts him down because he's in charge here. A serial killer is at work, and this is his chance to land a big case. So he goes to give an interview. The partners head to the morgue. The medical examiner confirms there are injection marks on the necks. What was injected is unknown. It looks like an unstable isotope. The partners grab a bite. Maddox says that once the baby arrives, Thomas will lose steam and time because work will move to the back burner. Thomas buys a bracelet for his wife. Soon, someone attacks a girl in a nightclub, and there are injection marks near the base of her skull. The victim is still alive, and the partners race to her. She says a dark-skinned girl in a blue hoodie with a bloody hand jumped her. Holt shows up and makes the poor thing repeat everything from the start, though Thomas begs him not to waste precious minutes. The girl passes out and bleeds to death. Cops comb the city and detain every black woman in blue clothing. Club patrons help build a composite sketch. Thomas says if they catch the killer, it's their shot at promotion. Suddenly, the wanted girl appears right in front of the hood. She runs over the car and bolts down the street. Thomas drives in reverse and calls for backup. A truck blocks the road. The cops chase on foot, and then they lose her. Thomas figures she slipped into the subway through a ventilation shaft. He goes down and finds an unusual syringe. Maddox radios that he sees the girl on the platform. The fugitive knocks his gun away, drops him, and runs. Thomas catches up to her. She suddenly calls him by name, marvels that everything will happen here, and congratulates him on the birth of his daughter. She apologizes for his partner and puts Thomas in a hold. The girl cuffs him to a bench and says they'll see each other soon. Thomas manages to jab her with the syringe. The girl loses balance and falls under a train. They retrieve the remains, forensics work the scene, and an exhausted Thomas steps outside. Suddenly, he's told his wife is in labor. He rushes to the hospital. There, a colleague says they found keys on the stranger, and in her hand, a bullet. But none of the officers reported firing at her until Thomas's gun is taken for ballistics. A nurse tells him his wife has internal bleeding, but the baby isn't in danger. They let him into the delivery room. He puts the bracelet on his beloved. She smiles, and then loses consciousness. Thomas and Holt wait in the hallway. They bring out the newborn and say the mother couldn't be saved. 9 years later, Amy flips pancakes for Dad while the news rehashes the triple death anniversary, with people fuming that the killer still isn't identified, the motive unknown, and the cops got promoted. The girl offers her dad ice cream in honor of her birthday. He gives her a charm for the bracelet that belonged to Mom. They drive to the cemetery to pay their respects. There are flowers and a card on the grave, but no one knows from whom. Next up is the zoo, but Thomas gets another work call, and Amy is upset. Still, Dad tears off to the crime scene with her, because it turns out the killings have started again. A university lecturer's bloodied head lies on a book about Andrew Jackson. Around it stand the same trio as 9 years ago, Detectives Maddox and Thomas, plus Lieutenant Holt. Thomas asks his brother-in-law if he visited his sister's grave, but Holt hasn't made it yet. They wonder that if this is a copycat, Where did he get the toxin? They check the security footage, and there she is again, the girl in the hoodie. Thomas wants to keep that from the press, but Holt refuses. Back at the station, Thomas reviews the old evidence and admits to Maddox that he hid what the killer told him. She knew about his daughter. He turns in the girl's keys, found 9 years ago, for analysis. In the end, on her birthday, Amy helps her dad sort evidence. 2 more victims are found in the city. Riots kick off, and police cars are set on fire. The detectives try to figure out what connects the dead. Thomas notices the copycat has an injured hand, but they never told the press about that. Maddox says, "You don't actually think she's alive, do you?" The lab returns the keys. They're for a small airplane, but that model has only been made since last year. They identify the closest airfield that hosts one. Thomas is ready to go, but his partner points at the sleeping daughter. He promises the girl they'll go to the zoo in the morning. In the corridor, he's stopped by a physicist named Navin. Navin says the murders happened during a supermoon or a blood moon. The scientist talks about gravity, electromagnetic pockets, and a bridge to another world. The partners wave him off and drive to the airfield. Thomas climbs over the fence and finds an employee in a hangar. He shows the man the girl's photo. The man hesitantly says he hasn't seen her. The detective senses he's holding something back, and the killer is already waiting around the corner. Thomas asks the employee to write down directions to the highway. The man draws a big arrow to the corner in Thomas's notebook, but it's too late because the girl already has a gun trained on the detective. She orders the employee to tie his hands. Thomas manages to hit the call button on his phone, and his partner hears the conversation. The girl takes the plane keys and menaces everyone with an automatic. But then Maddox appears and tries to stop her. She kills him on the spot. The girl takes Thomas hostage and forces him into the plane. During the flight, she tells him Thomas must stop chasing her. She sees where that will lead him. The girl explains she's not doing this for nothing. She's saving lives. She hadn't planned to kill his partner. Every 9 years, at lunar perigee, she can return for a short window, and she has little time now. The girl shoves the man out of the plane. He hits the water. He crawls onto a beach, and the plane is burning out there. By morning, the area is cordoned off by cops. Holt says the killer's trail has gone cold, and Thomas calmly says she went back to the future. Another 9 years pass, shaggy, unkempt. Thomas digs up an 18-year-old grave and photographs injection marks along the spine. He lives out of his car. He tries to track down Navin, but the man quit and vanished. Thomas goes to the dead man's wife. The man was thought to have died of an overdose since he split his head on a table. Together with his ex-girlfriend Hazel, he had founded a radical patriots militia movement. He wrote manifestos and mailed them tucked inside books about presidents. The woman sells Thomas a list of addresses, home bases of the injection victims. Thomas calls Holt and asks for a meeting. Then he picks up his daughter from school. She talks about life with her aunt and uncle. Thomas says he's about to finish the case. The girl doubts him and reminds him he's no longer a cop. He gives her a charm, but she hasn't worn the bracelet in a long time. He visits his wife's grave alone. Then, he proves to Holt that all the victims were radicals preparing terror attacks. And that's exactly why the guest from the future removed them. He talks about the moon and says the girl returns tonight. They need Hazel's address. Holt thinks he's lost it. Thomas cries on his shoulder and steals a police ID. He pulls Hazel's address from the police system and drives over. A vacuum is running in the house, and a blood-soaked woman lies nearby. There's noise upstairs. Suddenly, the girl in the hoodie jumps from the second floor and rides off on a motorcycle. Thomas fires, then spots a bloody handprint on the mailbox. He commandeers a passing driver's car and gives chase. He then runs after her along the beach, but she vanishes into a storm drain that leads into a cavern. The killer is inside a clear pod that is filling with water. Thomas has time to say, "We'll see each other soon," and she disappears. Thomas crawls back out, and there his brother-in-law is waiting with officers. Thomas shouts that now he knows when he shot the girl, just now. They take him to the precinct. And from a cliff, Navin watches it all. 9 years later, he runs experiments on pigs, dissolving their brains. The man says they'll be able to activate that solution from the future. He's shown security cam footage of Thomas on the beach with a car and a telescope. Thomas gets a text from Amy. She's due to give birth today, and she and her husband invite him, even though they don't get along. Suddenly, a bag is yanked over his head. Navin drives him in a car. Thomas says the killer has to be stopped. The scientist replies that that's the plan. There's no changing the world without blood. Thomas calls him insane. Navin says they're both obsessed with work, that he'll release Thomas in a couple of days, and he even thanks him for the investigation. He's realized that the girl is a savior using the technology he's developing. She doesn't kill the bad actors themselves, but those who influence them and shape their beliefs. By going into the past, you can reach the person whose death cancels what followed, because the initial spark that lit the blaze is snuffed out. Thomas secretly saws the ropes on his wrists against a dead pig's teeth. He breaks free and lunges at the scientist. They struggle, the car flips, and it smashes into a tree. Thomas crawls out, while Navin is pinned. The scientist begs him to let the girl finish what she started, but the ex-cop runs to her point of arrival, and he meets her there with a pistol. The girl says that if he stops her, the world will end. He answers that she's not the only one trying to change the past. He wants that too, because if he kills her, he'll be a normal guy again and reunite with his family. The girl says he gave her the mission himself. He held her in his arms when she was born and flipped pancakes for her. She is his granddaughter. Suddenly she hands him his wife's bracelet. Thomas is shocked. He realizes he killed her in the subway and begs her not to go back there. The girl replies that it will end in her death anyway. She tells of a massive future attack, followed by a war that took millions of lives and turned people feral. And the seed was planted by that junkie who dreamed up the Patriots militia. And Thomas's task now is to raise his granddaughter to be a warrior, one just like himself. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.